What's up, Battlefielders? This is Aaron Sampson.
And Ryan Schubert.
We wanted to engage with the community on the topic of combating shooter fatigue with marketing equals fail.
Yeah, we're not too happy.
But what really kind of got to us was the fact that EA released a couple of very contradictory statements.
Yeah.
So basically, to summarize, the statements were, we're not abandoning Battlefield 3, which is consistent with their yearly Medal of Honor Battlefield Medal of Honor release schedule, typically in October.
Now that statement also right now, this is in defense of something.
So what they're defending is the fact that the Medal of Honor Warfighter Limited Edition comes with access to the Battlefield 4 beta. Very interesting that in the same week they also said less than half of Medal of Honor players also play Battlefield, and we are doing our best to design the games to appeal to different communities.
Right, so it's even a smaller market than they would have from their own Battlefield players.
I mean, essentially, by giving the Medal of Honor Warfighter people the Battlefield 4 beta access, what they're saying is, we're appealing to the minority of people who play EA-published shooters at the expense of basically angering the majority of people who just dropped $50. Because, hey, Battlefield 3 fans, you're going to buy Battlefield 4 anyway, so who cares?
Yeah, they seem to just be of the opinion that they've got the Battlefield captive audience, and they don't need to cater any further to them. And then at the same time are, trying to rope in, I think, trying to get that smaller part of the Battlefield community to continue to purchase Medal of Honor.
So in the background here, as we're talking, you'll see some of the video comparisons we've done. Basically, mostly in the single-player campaigns, about very, very similar, if not exact copies of sequences in between the two games. So let's lay this out for you. Basically, the claim is that they're separate audiences. What we're hoping to accomplish today, though, is to pretty much say that EA is basically just saying this stuff to try and avoid shooter fatigue.
They're modern war shooters. They have their quirks about them that are different, but there is so much that is the same. So
we went and did some research on our site, and they've consistently released at approximately a year, typically in October, Battlefield Bad Company, then 7 months later...
Bad Company 2.
Yeah, Battlefield Bad Company 2, then Medal of Honor, then October it's Battlefield 3, then October it's Medal of Honor Warfighter, and then fall of 2013, Battlefield 4 beta, and fall
at some point
October.
We're assuming it's
range.
the same cycle.
Now you had pre-order access to Battlefield 3 beta from Medal of Honor.
Yeah, the Operation Metro 2 weeks or whatever it was.
Yeah. So we're seeing the exact same thing occurring again. Medal of Honor Warfighter pre-order people getting first crack at Battlefield 4 beta.
Yes.
And also, there's a lot of things that we've seen in the evolution. So EA is the publisher,
yes.
Danger Close does Medal of Honor, and DICE does Battlefield.
Right.
But these two studios, whether by EA or just the two studios themselves, have been basically coordinating on...
Right. We saw DICE basically bring Frostbite to Medal of Honor for the multiplayer, and then now, even though DICE isn't involved in Warfighter, Frostbite 2 is being used.
And not only that, but EA brought over Conquest and Rush into the original Medal of Honor, which you can't tell me wasn't there to appeal to Battlefield Bad Company 2 players.
Right, especially Rush is conspicuous, given that Conquest is kind of in one form or another in every game, but Rush is pretty obvious.
Rush is pretty much Battlefield.
Yeah. It is now. I mean, the PC players are going to hate us for making that statement.
Sorry,
since
PC
Rush
players. I know when we go on the forums, we do see a stark difference. There's a lot of PC players out there who played Battlefield for years, and they love Conquest, and they want everybody to take their hands off every other game mode.
Yep, it's so true.
Largely for console players, there's definitely been an evolution here. So let's talk about single player, because that's where I think probably the most influence has occurred.
Yeah, it's painful to talk about single player in connection to Battlefield, but we can do that.
So here's a barrier in Battlefield Bad Company 2. Largely the barriers made sense to what was going on the map.
Well, in Bad Company 2, it was rare that you would find yourself in a situation where there was a barrier that you wanted to cross that you couldn't.
Yeah.
Whereas I found the complete opposite with Medal of Honor, where I was regularly wanting to go in another direction, and the game just wouldn't let me.
So basically in Medal of Honor, you have the most muscle-atrophied soldier on the planet who quite often cannot open doors on his own, or has to wait for permission to open a door on his own.
Yeah, you can't open doors, can't climb over objects, can't be trusted really to do anything.
Like, the game literally doesn't trust you as a player to do these things. So, this is kind of the evolution. So we go from openness of Bad Company.
Right.
Then now we can't open doors on our own, and we can't crawl up ledges on our own. But, oh, by the way, every single one of our squad mates
has the power to do any of those things, yeah.
So then we get to Battlefield 3, a single-player campaign, and all of a sudden there's this drastic reversal from Bad Company. And also now, again in Battlefield 3, we're being stopped every couple of minutes for like a scripted sequence. So you basically can't continue until the game gives you permission to continue. Like this point in the game where you come across this execution site and it's supposed to be an emotional moment, but really like all I could think of was, why can't I get out of this room?
Yeah, I can't. I have to stay here and then wait for the inevitable attack.
Or, like in this next sequence where you're vaulting over a wall just kind of unnecessarily. It's just another moment where the game stops you because you just can't continue down this alleyway by yourself. So how did we get from the openness of Battlefield Bad Company to like to a game like Medal of Honor, which actually doesn't trust you to do anything it doesn't tell you? And
in fact, you will be penalized for doing something different. And
then that carries into a game like Battlefield, where now they don't even mess with that. If you don't do what they tell you, the game just straight up, you're just dead, instantly dead.
It makes you die.
And for no reason. The big question is, why did DICE sort of go the Medal of Honor route instead of the Bad Company route? And we're not talking about sort of the feel or tone, because Bad Company was a little cartoony, and DICE didn't want to repeat sort of the cartoony feel.
Right.
But in the game mechanics themselves, in the channeling of players and the making it more like a theme park ride, that you are ushered through this experience on a cart practically. In some cases literally on rails on a cart.
It's true. Battlefield 3 is borderline like a Disney ride with violence. The effects are great, it's beautiful, but you're stuck in a car. Like, you're not getting out of the car.
So we're curious what you think, but for us, we saw this as an evolution from Battlefield Bad Company single-player campaign to Medal of Honor single-player campaign being restricted.
Or a devolution.
Yeah. To all of a sudden, Battlefield 3 pulls an almost Medal of Honor-like campaign out.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear what people have to say about it, like what the rest of the community thinks, because I think that regardless, we'll hear plenty of people that would probably agree that the single player is disposable in Battlefield 3 anyway.
But think about it. I mean, we've talked about this before. It's an entire disc.
It is.
There's two discs.
They gave you basically a coaster that goes with your multiplayer disc.
And co-op. So we also saw a direct evolution in multiplayer. So Battlefield Bad Company 2 has massive open environments. It has lots of destruction. Then DICE goes over to Danger Close.
Yes.
And they build their Medal of Honor multiplayer with limited destruction, but bring almost all of their modes over and add a couple.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you get Battlefield 3 with limited destruction.
Yes. They again, another like sort of devolution.
And more linear objectives.
Yes.
This all goes against this whole idea that, hey, by the way, we're developing these. EA is saying we're developing these two franchises for completely separate audiences.
Yeah, they're definitely homogenizing the experience of their games. Like, they're making them very similar. And I would also be kind of curious what PC players think who didn't play Bad Company. Like, coming from Battlefield 2 and having that sort of completely awesome multiplayer experience to being offered this single player game and knowing also that the multiplayer is so heavily influenced by these other games that were primarily like, a console audience.
On that note, Both console players and PC players, we would like to hear what you think about the timing of the Battlefield 4 announcement, premium, Medal of Honor, EA's statements about trying to keep the two franchises separate by design, and whether you saw an evolution between the single-player campaigns or influence between the single-player campaigns.
Is it just us that these things are devolving, or do you agree with us?
As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the battlefield.